guys, it's Amy. Welcome to Jerry's Live. As always, I'm your host, Amy Gardner-Dean, and we are filming from my home studio, just, because we're all in this together. So, tonight's episode is JL145, and it is brushes 201, short-handled brushes, which are for our table mediums like watercolor, like egg tempera, like acrylic gouache, all those fun things where you're usually sitting down at a table. So those short-handled brushes tend to give you all of that much more kind of essential control that you need. But short-handled brushes also kind of open up that entire Pandora's box of different shapes and sizes and some weirdness. So we're going to talk a lot about kind of how to distinguish just the average types of short-handled brush kind of shapes and sizes, and go on to some that are very much more specifically for certain purposes, like scrubbers, like foliage brushes, like all sorts of different things, just to give you a better kind of understanding and education on our, regular short-handled brushes so that you can make better buying decisions. So if you missed our episode last week, that episode was JL144, and that was long-handled brushes. So if you're an easel painter, you work in acrylics, oils, anywhere that you need those long-handled brushes, that is going to be the episode that you're going to want to see. And even if you paint with short-handled brushes, it doesn't hurt to watch it because it gives you a lot more information about, we talked about different types of filaments for synthetic brushes. We talked about different hairs that are ideal for oil brushes, which that's going to be very different with the natural hairs for our short-handled brushes. We've got Katie and Amanda moderating today from different places remotely, so it's kind of fun. It's just hard for them to get questions to me to answer them. So I will be going back through the episode later on to be able to answer questions that I might miss here just because I might not catch it on the screen. Sometimes I can see it and catch it, and then I'll try to give you an answer right now. Chloe. We are going to have dogs from time to time barking, and you are going to hear cockatoo barking. Hey, ladies. Sorry. Cockatoo's out of the toy. And the Great Dane doesn't like that the cockatoo is shaking the new toy too much. So, because stop, ma'am. I guess, I don't know. Who knows? Because they're dogs. So, anyway, so we are going to, could you get started? Sorry about that. Let me get this pulled up on our Jerry's Over on the screen here in front of me so I can see the video with you guys and make sure I can see what's actually going on just with where the brushes are. So, all right, hold on. I'm going to put this on the tripod. Everybody, be ready. Hold on, I'm going to switch this around in just a minute. It's taking just a second. All right, so we've got our area set up. I do have some watercolor paper here, so we'll be able to show you maybe how some of these kind of more odd brushes work. We've got a pretty good setup of different style brushes. Let's pan over what we've got. Yes, the dog went out of the room, so now April is very much telling her how it is. I've got my brush bins here that I usually have with my short-handled brushes. Just little pottery brushes, so you can kind of see what my setup usually is. And then we've got all of these different brushes here, from decorative, watercolor, some different tools. We even have some of the our aqua brushes where you actually fill them with water and can use them independent of having to carry water with you for traveling or just even, painting on the go, sitting at your doctor's office waiting for an appointment, who knows. Now we do have the competition that we've been doing, and we will announce that at the end for $500, $250, and $100 gift card e-gift card each. We've got 3 winners from this last week, which was Paint What You Need, because everybody is doing things like looking for toilet paper and just, you know, maybe things that they need, like, for their happiness and their heart and soul. So, so we will look at those, or talk about who won those at the end of this episode, and we'll also give you the new directions for what next week's contest is going to be. Okay? All right, so let's get going. So in the world of short-handled brushes, April, you do not know anything about short-handled brushes, so... All right, so we're going to talk about synthetic and we're going to talk about natural. Now, synthetic can run the gamut of anything from the golden Taklon brushes, like these. It can run to the synthetic white sable, like these brushes. Let me adjust this light so we got a little bit, there we go, better vantage of that. It can run to some of the kind of more advanced brushes. The more synthetics have become popular, you have brushes that are like these are meant to perform and feel just like squirrel. I don't even know what to say. Like squirrel hair brushes. And then we've got synthetics like the Mimic Kolinsky that are designed to look and perform just like a traditional synthetic Kolinsky. Or traditional Kolinsky, yet it's synthetic. To the point of where sometimes people just can't tell the difference. So we're going to look at all these different things, and then we're going to look at some of the natural hair brushes. First, let's talk about brush shapes. And I think really the best brushes to kind of overview brush shapes are these Bestie brushes. Everybody knows what... Yes, April is hilarious. Everybody knows what a fan does, or is. That is going to, for your water media brushes, where we're sitting at a table, it's going to help with blending. Then you've got brushes like the angular brushes. Angular are perfect for being able to get into very tight corners and situations, kind of where you're trying to trim maybe an area out. Or even if you want a really nice thin line, when you've got that brush pointed at you, it's got really a nice, and I know the camera's kind of fighting to focus on that, it's got a really nice razor edge when it's wet. So an angular brush can work really well for that type of thing. Filberts. You do get filberts in the water media style brushes. Let me put this behind it and see if maybe this will help focus, or even just a hand. I think that'll work better. A filbert is going to give you kind of a softer edge where you can actually pull some medium across it, almost like a wash. A bushier filbert, such as the Ebony Splendor. This is a filbert shape, but this is considered a mop. A mop is where you've got a very dense hair front to back, so it can absorb a lot of fluid. There's a lot of hair in there. And that filbert makes it kind of a softer tip. You can lay down a lot of liquid, and that's a filbert, but yet it's also a mop as well. Where this filbert obviously would be for some better detail work. Then you've got brushes. I'm sorry if I'm getting close to the sound there, just how I've got this set up so you can see easier, kind of puts it closer to my face. This is a one stroke and it's a flat. And what that means is this has a lot of area, so it pulls up a lot of fluid, but it's got that nice chisel shape of a flat. So you'll actually be able to lay down a long stroke because this body of that brush there can hold a lot of water medium. All right. Then you've got a decorative brush called a Deerfoot Stickler. This is something if you do a lot of foliage work that's very helpful. It's for, a technique that's called pouncing, where, see how nice and flat that end is? You can actually take the medium and whether you dry brush it or wet brush it, actually kind of pat and pounce that on there for a variety of techniques. even works well for like if you're doing animal art. That's helpful for like dappling on horses and things like that. A super shader. Shaders are a brush that isn't kind of as fluid as a one stroke, but it's going to give you the ability to hold enough fluid media but have an edge that you can kind of go into on a painting that you already have kind of colors already going, and kind of lift and soften that edge while putting some medium down, maybe to blend those colors together where one area is already dry and then you're coming in with something wet and you kind of want those to be blended. A shader brush is very helpful for that. Then you've got rounds. Rounds are just that typical brush where it's your traditional kind of watercolor point. Something that's called a bushy round. Sometimes you'll see somebody say that. In fact, I think there's one. I know there's one in one of these sets somewhere. No, that's not one. We'll find it in a little bit as we go. Rounds can be one of two things. These are pointed rounds. See how there's not a lot of body in here on the brush, but it's got a very good point. Pointed rounds are good at detail, holding some fluid, but they're not going to be as absorbent as something like on this watercolor set. And these are all what I'm showing you. This is actually considered a decorative set that we were just looking at. It's got all these different types of tips and things that are good for decorative painting. This is a selection of watercolor brushes. So we've got that, see how this is round, but look how the body, that belly goes all the way up much higher before the point. That's going to give you a lot more fluid medium to lay down rather than it being kind of that thinner pointed round, like the one next to it is. Okay, those are rounds. Then we've got something called a liner. You know, different manufacturers are going to have different ideas kind of on what a liner is. A liner is usually a longer, thinner bristle that's going to help you edge things. It's going to help you outline. Even if you're doing work like, say, a fence post on a farm with either barbed wire or something like the wood grain in it. A liner brush is great for that. But then you've got brushes that... Okay, so this is long and thin, right? What the heck is that? Is that a liner? This one, actually, they term it as a script brush. Okay, so there's script, and then there's a brush that is called, let me see where I've got that, a rigger. Not like rigor mortis, like rigger like on a ship. Okay, here we go. This is a rigger. So see how the script is much thinner here? And these all have sizing in it, so this will bend once it's washed out. And you'll have to pick up fluid media to get it to kind of hold the bristles together. The script is for long, thin, like a signature or doing something, scrolly or something like that. A rigger, see, it's got more body there than this does. This is very long and thin. This has some substance to it, okay? Riggers were designed specifically, and they're called riggers for maritime artists use them a lot, where they have to do rigging on a ship, where you've got a really long area, that you're going up to the mast or the sails, where you need to make that rope or something like that. You have to have a lot more fluid in that brush to be able to complete that super long stroke than you would need with a script. You'd be going over it and over it, and you need that one long, thin stroke. Okay, so that's kind of the difference in those. Now, different manufacturers will call them different things. There's also a brush. This is a liner, but there's, let's see. Sorry, let me bump that. There's also a type of brush called a spotter. These are fine tip liners. See how long this is? If this was like about half the size and kind of stubbier, that would be a brush called a spotter. We don't have any in any of these brushes that I brought. What that spotter does is it's for putting in things like maybe a highlight in an eye on an animal or something like that, or in a portrait, where you want it not to be thin and tiny, you want it to be kind of rounder or chunkier. You would have something called a spotter that you could kind of lay that in there with just one little dab. Or a liner or something like this, you might really have to, you know, keep kind of messing with it, and it's not as controllable for something like that. So that's another style brush. It's shorter round actually. This is something a little bit smaller of a size that's similar to like what a spotter would be. Here's a Filbert, but this is like more of a wash style Filbert. See how there's a lot more body to that brush, a lot more hair. Then you've got a nice long thin flat, that's a one stroke. A round, nice pointed round. Now, anytime you see this style brush, where it's got this clear handle and this scraper tip to it, and a lot of this is white, the white synthetic filament. Now, a lot of times you'll see them in the golden Taklon. They're called aquarelles, and what those are is they're a wash brush or more like a one stroke. This is like a very small kind of wash or detail brush. But knowing that it's called an aquarelle means it's going to have this type of handle where you can use this to scrape color back. Okay, or even if you're very gentle with your like your masking fluid, you can use that to gently pull that edge back. It's a good multi-purpose tool. Besides just the brush tip, it's got that tool end to it. And for some reason, it's just the hallmark of the style brush. They always have a clear acrylic handle. Okay. All right, let's see what else we've got. Okay, so we've talked about these being the golden Taklon. Golden Taklon was kind of really that first early synthetic when they really started making synthetic brushes. It's still really awesome, really good all-purpose. Obviously, they've stuck around because they're a successful style of brush hair. Then you had the white filaments, like what we just looked at with the polar flows. Now, all these sets that I'm showing, we've got this. I just grabbed what are called Tryout Sets. Tryout Sets are this fantastic way to try different styles of brushes, different, you know, like the golden Taklon to the white synthetic filament to some of the other style brushes. In all of our own personal line of brushes are either the Creative Mark proprietary brushes or a few of the other brush styles have it. So it's way cheaper than if you bought it individually for the brushes. Typically it depends on the brush style, but I think they're around $14.99 is the typical cost to the Tryout brushes. And they have them in long handled as well, but this was the easiest way for me to get a multitude of brush styles to show you, and also to be able to kind of discuss this content. So that's the Polar Flow watercolor set. That's that white filament. And white filament came after the golden Taklon, so it's kind of the next upgrade, although they still both work extremely well. This was our watercolor set that we talked about with that little script brush. Let's see which one this was. Woo! Brushes are going to be flying everywhere. All right. This is a decorative set, and this has a couple styles that we haven't talked about yet. Here it's got two script styles, this and this, but this really being fatter like that probably qualifies more as a rigger, just because it's got a lot more hair, even though it's just from a 0 to a 4. So that's, but again, like I said, different manufacturers call it different things. Here is a very nice little liner brush. A liner is like a thinner script, and generally shorter for a little bit better control for outlining. The Nadel round is a much thinner version of it's just from an artist, this name was Nadel, much thinner round, so it's got that kind of almost a cross between if a script and a liner and a round had a baby. There's your brush. Then you're going to be talking about brushes having babies. Dagger. A dagger brush is, and this is more of a rounded dagger, there's different styles. You'll get some that are just almost a little bit more like an angular, where it's shorter and the cut is more kind of across the way. And then you'll get some that are much longer. And then we'll talk about some brushes that we have that are kind of more accentuated sword liners. This is Dagger is shorter, sword liners are going to be much longer. What this does is it gives you the ability to kind of pull a stroke, but then paint on edge and carve with that. And the Dagger is kind of your safe one for that, because it's short enough to still give you good control, but also kind of controllable to put down more fluid if you've got it on the side. So we'll look at that in just a little bit. We'll try some of these different styles. And then this is another big one stroke where it's got that nice big thickness for pulling in a lot of fluid and laying down like a much larger area of a stroke. Okay, I'll leave this there. I don't want to move them because we might want to grab some different brushes. Now, when we talked about the detail, Creative Mark made, pull them in here, some fine tip liners, a family of fine tip liners for people that do a lot of detail work. So you can see these go down to, and let's talk about brush sizing because that's an important thing, especially with your short handle brushes. When you see things where it says 10 and a 0 and then a 20 over 0, don't panic. This isn't fractions where we're going to make you do math. All this is a way of determining how slight that size of the brush is going to be. Okay, when you hear somebody say a 10-aught or a 20-aught, that's what they're talking about for these brushes. It's just meaning when it's got that over a 0, it's meaning it's smaller than a size 0. So this is 10 times smaller than a size 0. This one, that's the 20-aught, 20 times finer than a size 0. So it's a way of making things even smaller kind of after the fact when you need a very fine detail brush. So these are a good way to get either one specifically or a number of different ones if you're going to do whiskers or veins in a leaf on a tree or things like that. These are really fantastic brushes. And Charmaine says they're great for signing your work, and I agree that is as well. So those are very nice brushes that are specifically designed to be those little liner brushes. Okay. These are similar to the Bestie style brushes, but a little bit more they have some decorative brushes, but a little more kind of watercolor oriented. These are the Ebony Splendor brushes. Now we haven't talked about this shape yet, so let's put these down and we're going to talk about that. Okay, so we've got this big brush that looks more like a house painting brush style. This is called a paddle brush, and this is called a wash. Now, the difference between a wash and a one stroke, look how much luxurious, very soft hair is in there. This is like it feels like baby's hair on a baby's head, how that hair is just super duper fine. Calling it a wash means this is super absorbent. This is going to pull up a lot of fluid and be able to do very large washes across your brush for background colors, for if you're just working really large scale, you can cover large areas quickly without getting kind of those dried edges that you'll get where you're working with really small brushes. Super fun and easy to use. I really like the paddle brushes for dispensing large areas. If you don't have a paddle brush, consider getting one if you work in a lot of water media, because after you try one, you will kick yourself for not having had one before. I didn't have one for the longest time. It wasn't until I worked at Jerry's that I got the first one and just tried it kind of by okay, let's see what the really big deal was. And then I was like, ooh, the Homer Simpson kind of reaction. So it's definitely worth having in your arsenal. Also, a good mop, whether it's a Filbert style mop or whether it's, a natural hair like a pony or goat, or whether it's even, we'll talk about quill brushes in a little bit, because quill brushes can kind of double as a mop, but with a little bit more detail. Those are really, good to do. And this Ebony Splendor, the tack on, is softer than on the Bestie, so It's designed to be more fine, so it really kind of functions closer to a natural hair than just a straight up kind of basic golden taglin. So we've got, this is a shader, so less area to be able to sorry that these are, it's taken a bit to focus on the brush. Less hair in there to pull the water in, but enough where you can kind of soften an edge and be able to kind of blend easily. Again, that's that nice big rigger, nice fat body to it, a little fan, a nice angular brush, and then just kind of an average round. It's not so much a pointed round, but it's not a super big kind of thirsty round either. All right, so now that we've talked about those, let's talk about a synthetic that performs like a very soft hairbrush does. The Mimic Squirrel is an animal-friendly performance brush that very much acts like Squirrel does. Squirrel is a very thirsty hair. It absorbs tons of fluid, but it doesn't always give you a sharp point once it's wetted down, okay? Because it's just, like if you look at a squirrel in the yard and you see how bushy they are, it's harder to get that point. It's not like the weasels, which are the, you know, your Kolinsky and things like that. It's looser and kind of more flowy. The nice thing about a synthetic is that you can take it and still give it that taper with the hair in the way that they can make it perform that you cannot get with a natural hair squirrel. And we'll look at this compared to one of the Harmony squirrels in just a little bit, so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. So they have a nice range of shapes. This is one of the trial sets. I don't think this is the Tryout set, but because this had so many different variances of sizes, I wanted people to be able to see kind of what you can get in a series. That has a rigger. This is very much, it's probably considered a small round, but it looks like a spotter. Yeah. And then different rounds, your pointed rounds, but then see how this has much more belly. Even though it's pointed, it has all this area for lots of fluid. So that's just not considered kind of this pointed rounds. It's just a regular round. And then you've got your kind of a flat that's a one-stroke style brush, okay? So we'll go back and we'll look at those in just a little bit. But that's going to give you, anytime anything says squirrel, whether it's synthetic or not, picture something that moves lots of water very well, but isn't going to give you kind of that razor sharp ability that a Kolinsky is going to. I saw that, Patty. Squirrels doing harmony. I'm not sure if you've got squirrels that are singing or what. All right, so let's look at what a quill brush is, okay? Those other ones have that shape kind of that these rounds do, but they don't have the quills. Quills traditionally were wood. They were a goose quill that was heated and soaked for long enough where it started swelling very large. And then they would jam the hair down in it and the wood and then bind it together with gold wire. It was the typical traditional way that they would make those brushes. Worked fantastically. Some of the kind of oldest watercolor style brushes that are known to man. The only problem is if you live in an environment that's super, dry some of the year and then wet others, you can have cracking with natural quill brushes. Very few people. There are a few manufacturers, but very few people do those natural quill brushes because of that. And they're very expensive now because it's just really hard to maintain the humidity that's going to be taken from it. And then the other thing about why synthetic is, besides just that, is to get the brush to perform right, you actually have to soak it in water for a short while to get that quill to soak up, to tighten around that ferrule. So that the bristles perform the same, because if you just dunk it in the water and then you start to paint with it, then it's not going to give you the same performance as after you've had it wet for a while and used it, okay? So these are ideal for, I see Norma saying, wow, these can hold water. They hold a ton of water. It's amazing. They're some of my favorite brushes because they, you can cover really large areas if you're painting something large. You can do some with the smaller ones, you can do some detail, but they can really cover, if you know you're a tentative painter, these tend to make you enjoy the stroke and kind of cover areas much faster than you normally would with other brushes, because we all tend to always, very few painters go up to too big of brushes. They always default to smaller brushes because just kind of that kind of self-doubt, I guess. So the Squirrel Quill brushes are great because you can carry much more water than you thought you needed. You have the ability to cover a large area, but you still have some control with the point, and we'll look at that in just a little bit. We might use some of mine because mine are all washed out and super easy to use. Okay, so those are a set, and comes with kind of one of these bamboo brush holders because those are really good for keeping these style brushes kind of safe when you're kind of not using them. So I'm sure the way I am keep them in my studio is not good. I know I get a lot of dust in them, and then I have to wash them a lot. So, all right. So those are the Squirrel Quill. Something we didn't talk about because this is a hybrid. So the Danube brushes that we make. It was a brush that we worked on for a while, kind of tweaking. This is our own creation. It's got that ability because we liked the Mimic Squirrel, which is the synthetic, and we liked the regular Squirrel. But the Mimic gave you that better control. The regular Harmony Squirrel was just all that just beautiful fluid washiness that you can absorb so much more water in, but it didn't give you the control with the point. These are done with both the Kazan Squirrel, which is a blue squirrel hair that's super absorbent, super, long, absorbs moisture. It's just a beautiful type of natural hair. And then they've actually put multi-filamented sizes of synthetic hair in it with it so that it gives you some of that, a little bit of bounce and spring like the synthetic squirrel does, but it still gives you the ability to have more of a traditional performing style quill brush. It's just when you get to that point of where you need that tighter kind of end for maybe, doing a little bit tighter finished work, but you don't want it to be, super, those tiny little strip brushes. This will give you that ability to paint most of your painting with this. These are one of my favorite watercolor brushes, just because it's like a great workhorse brush. All right. From there, we're going to talk about, I'm going to lay these down, the synthetic Kolinsky brushes, which are the Mimic Kolinsky. These are absolutely all synthetic, which when you look at these fans is amazing to think, because that really looks like natural sable hair. It feels like natural sable hair. It's super soft, springs back, gets these absolutely gorgeous points. Like Kolinsky, it looks like a handmade, European brush. These are done in Germany for us. It's a really fantastic line. So it's got more of the synthetic price, but it's got the, Kolinsky is super expensive now, guys. And the issue with that is because of restrictions on hair and kind of the animal management and things like that. Because the conditions that, instead of trapping wild animals where the fur is super thick and bushy because it's freezing cold, the farms have to keep them above, in better temperatures and things like that. So your hair is not the quality that it once was. And then it all has to be, papers and things like that for the brush makers. They can't have any hair unless it was done before a certain time in their possession that's not been, approved. So it's making it so those beautiful, thick, natural Kolinsky brushes that you used to be able to get just aren't the same as what they used to be. So a lot of companies are going to synthetic. These are fantastic brushes that are going to give you that performance, but still the body of what the old traditional Kolinsky brushes are. You can get Kolinsky brushes now. They're much smaller. There's probably 2/3 of what the hair would be in that same size brush by a specific manufacturer. There's any specific manufacturer. All the ones that that I've loved Kolinsky hair from in the past. So you don't have that where you've had to downsize because of the price to make it so that people can still kind of scrape the coins together to afford it. So this is a great alternative for that, both price-wise, both, just the kind of the animal friendliness, but still that performance. And then they also make a set of the liners that we've just come out with. So you've got, some of more of a script. You've got some little tiny, almost like a spotter right there, for being able to give yourself some really good tight detail, but that performance of a traditional Kolinsky style hair. So, so these are really nice brushes, and especially these flats. Look at how much hair that is. That just will produce so much water kind of flowing across the surface to be able to cover an area, but because it performs like Kolinsky, you can still get a very tight angle and edge if you want to use it kind of on the edge. But even for like oil, these would be perfect for doing portrait blending and stuff. There's nothing that says you can't use a short handle for regular easel mediums like oil. It's just not using it back in water again. All right, so I told you about some very kind of oddly specific. I forgot. We've got one natural Kolinsky here. The Rhapsody Kolinsky are these beautiful natural Kolinsky brushes. That have that beautiful Kolinsky hair. They look very similar, don't they? In both color and shape. The difference is going to be that these are going to naturally, on their own, these can be treated and fashioned by hand. These are all made by hand by experienced brush manufacturers to kind of come to that point. These want to naturally do it kind of on their own. And even though these are designed and treated, the hair is treated filament's treated to be able to absorb more water, it's still, if you put one against the other, not going to be quite the exact match for what that traditional Kolinsky is going to be. And it's hard to beat, even though those brushes are very beautiful, it's hard to beat what the natural hair feels like. Just that beautiful kind of natural Kolinsky hair. And then this one's the piece de resistance, if you will. This is just a very beautiful brush. So you've got that, tip that you can't get from other hairs, that Kolinsky gives you that kind of extra long razor tip, and the bounce back when you're working with it. Okay, so let's very quickly talk about a couple other styles of brush, kind of not the nitwits of the pack, but it's just very different. And it's something that until you use it, you don't really, you're like, yeah, that's great, but what does it do? Yeah, that's cool, but what does it really do? When you see them, it makes more sense. So when we start our painting, we'll work with these first just to kind of be able to see. These are sword liners. I'm going to put all these down here so you can kind of see the hair. And then there's these tiny itty bitty little ones as well that are going to be similar to the same thing. Now, a sword liner has that dagger shape to it, right? But it goes kind of that extra mile. I think that you can see this pretty okay with the, look how much fluid this thing will hold. This is Mimic Kolinsky, so again, it's designed to handle larger amounts of fluid. And then the Black Knight is synthetic. It's a little bit stiffer, gives you a little more bounce. If you wanted to use this with like an oil paint or an acrylic that's been thinned down, this is going to be able to kind of muscle its way a little more because of just how that filament, the diameters of filament are designed. It's got multiple diameters. So it's going to give that a little bit more control over that Kolinsky by like a point. If you're talking a 1 to 5 scale, it's going to be probably about like a point. But and not quite as much body as it. But look at how that. And when you use them, you can use them on their side, or you can use them straight up and let that kind of hair trail. And you can see some people prefer this. Is called probably really a dagger striper. It's shorter. And because of the handle, you're going to use it at a higher angle to control it when you pull it across. Now, some of these are squirrel and some of these are synthetic of this type that we've got. And you can see the starch is still in these that are the natural to protect it. The synthetic doesn't have the starch, so we'll use one of those. So you can see kind of, it doesn't look like it would give you as much of a kind of control, but these can give you these are the traditional tool of people that do pinstriping on cars and things like that. Just because it's got that, anywhere your hand goes, that brush is going to follow you. April says she needs a demo. I don't think she believes it. Where this longer handle is going to give you kind of a little bit more flow and a little bit more play, especially if you want to work with decorative types of paints. You're just full of beans today. Okay. All right, so we can quickly talk about water brushes real fast, and then we'll try some of those daggers, and then people can give some feedback on different types of things that they might like to see. Water brushes are just that. I'm just going to hold 2 of these. It'd be easier than holding all these. They can come in different points. They have a reservoir to them that can be opened easily and filled. And then they're going to have a synthetic bristle to them. And there's different point sizes, and I think they even do like a flat. So you've got a little bit more kind of ability to do some different things. This little one comes, that's the Aqua Go, comes in 3 sizes. So this doesn't come in a flat, but this is a little bit more of kind of a traditional style feeling hair. It's synthetic, but it feels a little more natural. A little shorter, a little more ergonomic, fits in a pocket, easier than kind of these longer ones. But they're ways of giving you kind of that ability to use water on the go, not have to bring a water container, and things like that, where you can wet pans and, whatever you want to use that for, easy to use on the go. So let's show quickly. And Katie and Amanda, if you're trying to text me, my phone is not on me, so I can't see what's going on. So let's miss this real quick. And I think you guys can see right up in here. So we'll start up there. And then we'll pull across. I might need to grab another block, because I didn't think about using just loose paper. All right. So these smaller ones, let's get the bigger one of the smaller. You can see, you can kind of see the water, very loose and, kind of loose and floppy. That's how that squirrel is going to be. This is the synthetic, but it performs very much the same. Just getting a fluid medium in it. See how floppy that is because of that long hair. But look, and you saw how rough kind of edged it was. Look how nice and smooth it is now. And it's really filled up with that fluid. So if I want to start up here, I can push down to make it wider. Can angle all over. See how that can be used easily by somebody that's doing pinstriping. You can get nice long lines quite easily with that little tiny brush. So that's the synthetic and the natural work very much the same. Just that natural is going to give you that little bit more absorbency. If you really need to go really long distances, the natural may be your best bet. It just holds that little bit more fluid. So those are these ultra cute little New York Central Dagger stripers. All right. So I don't think I've got any of these sword liners here. So let me wash some, I'll do the mid-size one. I think that would be the easiest to work with for you guys to see. Get these out of the way. If anybody's got any questions, go ahead and shoot. We've got about 15 minutes, and I'm trying to see them on the camera. Okay. I don't see any questions yet. All right. Now with these wet, you can see these are the same size brush. Okay. Look how much thicker that Mimic, which is the brown one, is by comparison. Just because it's designed to be more like a natural Kolinsky, it's a little fuller, right? But you can see between the two, there's no paint on them yet. This is nice and soft. That's a little firmer. See that bounce? Okay, so we'll do the natural one with, let's say, a green, or the one that's designed to be like a Kolinsky. That's synthetic. So we can see that fluid medium in it. That wide of a brush just produced that beautiful little line. So if you do landscape for foliage, you could really get some nice grasses in, tree limbs. I mean, this could be made into a pine. Super, and I do not do landscape, so I'm just spitballing here, folks. But look at how you could really get some nice, or turn it on its side. You know, botanical illustration. You can start making grass-like things. Okay, so that's the Kolinsky, Mimic Kolinsky version of that. Let's try the Black Knight. We'll do this orange, so that'll show up a little bit. Okay. So that's giving you almost the exact same feel. You can just tell it's not as heavy. You can feel that there's not as much kind of water in there. But if you have really nice long lines okay, this is that easy. This is that easy to use those to do that. And I've not had a watercolor class since I was 13 feet, which that's when dinosaurs roamed the earth, folks. I'm going to just do this so you can really see what I'm talking about. Gives you lots of nice control on edge or just kind of straight for any fluid medium, even if you wanted to use that with oils. The Mimic one was Steve is asking, the Mimic one is the one with kind of the burgundy handle. It's like all the other Mimics. It's designed to look the same, where the Black Knight, surprise, is the black one. Linda, you could use these with acrylics. They would need to be thinned because heavy body with lengths like this is obviously probably not going to work as well. If it's thinned or if it's fluid acrylic or inks, it would work beautifully. But yeah, you could definitely do some thinned work with these. Super easy. I mean, look at the edge that you can get with those. Very fun brush. It's brushes, just like that paddle brush was to me, was like, I don't know why I ever need this. What is this even for? And then after using these, I was like, why have I never had these? Take my money. All right. So, whoops, I'm sorry. All right, so any particular, we didn't talk about scrubber brushes. Let's talk about those really quick. And the foliage brushes. And then we'll kind of do some different ones you guys might want to see, and then we can get to our winners. Okay, so foliage brushes we'll talk about first. Foliage brushes are actually a hog bristle, which you generally don't have that super stiff brush in a short-handled brush. There's a reason for that. Obviously, it's that. You can, you know, ghost in some, let me get this wet, just enough. You can ghost in some with a dry brush. You can use it to tap in some you know, for faraway leaves on a tree. That's much drier. I really wiped the excess out. You can even use it to just, I mean, make, with that stiffer nature to it, make even some grass streaks like that. So that gives you kind of the ability to do multiple things with a type of bristle that you never would have thought about for fluid medium. And you can get those, I believe, individually or in a set like that. And Tammy is saying she's bought the scrubbers, but she hasn't used them. So, all right, let's explain how to use these scrubbers. Okay, so scrubbers are these are not a apply paint brush. I mean, I'm sure that you probably could with some of those techniques like we just looked at. They're just not quite as stiff. These are, think about scrubbing. You're cleaning, right? You're getting something off. This is what, sorry, I keep bumping that. This is what scrubber brushes are for. Whether it's something very fine detail where you want to use those little tiny filberts, whether it's an edge that you want to kind of erase, or like a squared area where you can really utilize those nice points to it. These longer ones are perfect, like if you want to soften an area. You know how some pigments will kind of go to the edge and then you get that really dark line that's darker. You can actually take these and soften it. Okay, so let's see. Let's use, we'll use this Filbert kind of right here. And then we'll use the larger one. Let me get some paper towels. You will want to have paper towels or a sponge that's you've gotten wet, but you've kind of gotten the excess out because you don't want it to be too awful wet. All right, so we're going to go in right here because this will be easy to see. And you only want to use these on rag paper because rag paper is much stronger because it's cotton. Okay, see how I'm lifting that? Look how much that takes out right there. I'm going to pick this up. That took that right out. I'm going to hold this, and we'll get one of those square ones. I'm wanting to be real gentle. I'm not scrubbing hard on it. It says scrubber, but that doesn't mean you need to beat it because you will lift the paper. Look how much I can lighten that. This is a staining green. That's a big difference there. So this is almost like kind of your eraser of mistakes are these scrubber brushes. So if you do any type of water media like this where it's going to be that gum arabic base, obviously this isn't going to work for you know, inks and acrylics and stuff like that because it's not going to be the same as you know, something that's just being held. This, since the gum arabic is just kind of holding this down. Sorry, I'm trying to get this back on the tripod. There you go. The gum arabic is what's holding this pigment down. You want something like these for that. It's not going to work for the other types of things. But I mean, it works very well. This is a very dark blue. Let's see if this is very zen. See? Easy peasy. Okay. What types of brushes does everybody want to see? How about if we, while I throw things on the floor, while I wait to see what people say, we'll try the Quill brushes so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. We've got one of the Danube ones. This is my own brush, a nice big one. And then we've got one of the, oops, nope, that's a Danube before we decided to do the handle. Let's see. All right, we're going to have to take one of these because I thought I had these too, but apparently, this is it. 8, let's do a 10. Okay, so we've got a 10 and a 16. Again, manufacturer sizes don't really make sense. All right, I'm going to put these in here for a minute and get the sizing out of that one while I flip the paper around for you guys to see. Check and see if there's been any questions. Oh, good, Carol. Okay, and the synthetic squirrel. We will look at that in a minute, Heidi. Okay. Sizings. Because these are so soft, they put a lot of sizing in it, so it's taking just a second to get out. Okay. All right, so I will do the Danube, which is the partial synthetic, in a like a red or orange, and we'll do the blue with the. Still got a lot of sizing. Hold on for just a second. Sometimes with these, they put a lot of sizing in it, and you need to actually wash them with a little soap and let it set. Okay, we got it now. My table is sopping wet. Okay. Look how big that's gotten from that natural squirrel hair, where this is wet. See what I'm talking about? That point still keeps a pretty fine point. All right. So we're doing the blue with the natural. See how this works almost like a mop? But when I go to pull that up, see how that just kind of gets flat and squashy? It's not, it's actually bending. It's staying that way because it's a very super soft hair, right? All right, so if I take the Danube, which has some of that synthetic, when I pull it up, look what comes up, point. That's a pretty fine point for something that's that big to still be able to get some littler bits of detail where we're not gonna, even though I've taken the water out of this, we're still not gonna get that fine of a point with that. Does that make more sense now? So now that you've seen a natural squirrel and then kind of the squirrel with synthetic blend, let's look at the all synthetic squirrel. Let's see. Grab this one. Give me a minute to get the sizing out. We'll go with it's kind of a reddish violet here. It's a lot of water for that small of a brush. But look how you can get a really nice fine point. So if you wanted something that was a very durable hair long term, especially if you like to work with rough watercolor paper that's really wearing on especially natural brushes, this would be perfect because it can still give you that nice point to the brush. You know, nice little point right there, but it's still got the ability to be absorbent. And this is not a large brush. You would not expect that much absorbency, especially in a synthetic that could cover that much of an area. Is there any other fan brush? Okay. What brand is, if it's this synthetic, we're talking about the Mimic Squirrel. Okay, so let's, somebody said a fan brush, so let's grab a fan. Okay, the fan can be used for decorative. Once you wet a fan, it turns into this though. Okay, so that's why you want to do dry brushing typically with a fan, unless you're trying to soften something with it wet. If you're trying to soften something with it wet, you can come over here and you've got this area that's still wet. Now if I've got a sponge, I could go back and lift that. See how that softened? And then I've got this other one that's dry. I can go in and get that little bit of paint that's still wet. I can use that for foliage and things like that. It's just not as controllable as those foliage brushes. Okay. So it's a much better kind of a blending brush than anything. Does anybody want to see what some of these scripts look like? How fine of a line you can do with a script? Before we, let's see, check our time here. Yeah, looks like we're right on the edge of the time. Oh, Siri apparently thought the same thing. All right, let's grab one of these. Oh, let's grab one of the Mimic ones. I haven't used these yet, so let's see how well these do. I'm gonna turn this a little bit. We'll go right here. It's got a lot of water on the tiplets. Oh, that's a very nice little line for a relatively large size brush. Say size 4. Usually for something that fine, you need something way smaller than size 4. So that's really nice. Really, really nice. Look at that. Okay. So any brand of script is going to give you a tighter line. This, because it's that synthetic Kolinsky, see how it's got some spring back to it? Even with hair that long, that's going to give you that even little bit kind of an edge over it. Okay. So, let's grab the, first, we're going to be doing a pastel episode next week. It is JL146. I put a kit together online if anybody wants to participate with us. Besides April, you can't use pastels. It's a set of 32 of the really adorable little half sticks of Mungio pastels. So it gives you a really good variety of colors. The complete charcoal and pastel blending kit. There's going to be a eraser in it. It's a kneaded eraser and a pochette of the Fabriano colored drawing paper, which is the Tiziano. All sorts of colors are included with that. So it's 12 different colors. So you can pick what color you want to do the artwork with us. We're going to be drawing a pair, so it's very simple and easy. If you want to see what the supplies are and the price, all you have to do is go to jerrysartorama.com, to the search box, type in the JL146. That'll bring that up, and there is a code that is live 146. So it's live 146, and that will give you free shipping on this because this is way under the free shipping code. It's I believe under $25 for the set. So it's something, I know, Jennifer, that's why I picked this, because I loved your painting that you did with the pair. Jennifer Felder was in my OC class, and I loved that pair so much that she did, I wanted to use it in something else. So, so I will post this image. I will give it to Katie to post ahead of time, and then I will also post it in the Jerry's Live Facebook group. So you'll be able to, if you're a member of that, you'll be able to go. That'll be in there, and I will tag it with the hashtag JL146. If you're not a member of the group and you've got a Facebook account, go to the group pages, type in Jerry's Live, make sure you answer the question, and then they will put you in and you'll be able to get that pair. But that will be there. I thought it would be fun for us all to do a project together, and even if you watch it and you really are into it and you decide to order this out after the fact, it will be there and that code will work. So just for something that's super inexpensive, that's fun, that we can all do together. And then you've got 11 other sheets of paper to keep working with those pastels on, okay? So, winners. Let me take this off the mount and I'll turn this around because it feels very cold and personal that you guys are there. And I'm way back over here. Oh, I don't want that. All right. Here we are. Okay. So, turn where I can see the light a little better. Drum roll, please, for the What Do You Need contest, which we had some people that took that very literally, which I expected, which was fun. The first place e-gift card is a $500 e-gift card. There are 3 places that we're doing for this contest every week. So it doesn't do anything to, to not, if you don't enter, you definitely aren't winning, okay? So you should enter these. The What Do You Need contest winner is the first e-gift card. That's $500, is a painting of money with drawn hands that I was in love with. Lynette Vasquez Gardner, no relation to me, from Massachusetts, won herself a $500 e-gift card. Then the second place $250 e-gift card goes to Melody Greenleaf of Sandy, Utah. She did a holy toilet paper roll thing where it's toilet paper and it's like the holy lights are shining down on it. It was hilarious. So she has the second place prize. Third place is a $100 e-gift card. That goes to Barbara F. Johnson of Hernando, Florida. She did, I'm guessing, her grandkids stuffing a scarecrow, and that is definitely something you need when you cannot get to your relatives that you miss and love. So, so great entries, guys. Next week is something that we can all appreciate, enjoy, and do. It is suburban sketching. It is showing us what you see. We're trying to get you to get out in your yard, just even if it's just on your porch. If there's somewhere you can walk to get to that's still doing the social distancing, but just getting yourself out. Because if you're like me, you've been really bad, and I've been out, I think, twice this week, which is not good. I need to get out more. So that is what we're doing next week. So those need to be in by Monday night at midnight to be considered for that contest. Kate will be putting links in, and Amanda will be putting links in the comments for that. So congratulations to our winners. Now, to get in the spirit of things, I obviously can't enter, although I would really like a $500 e-gift card, just saying. Thursday, we are going to be, I'm doing extra filming for you guys, just for some fun stuff to either catch up on projects we've done or even just something new and different. I'm going to be filming this Thursday, and I'm going to do them at 5:30. It's 5:30 on Tuesday, 5:30 Thursday, 5:30 on Sunday, the same Eastern Standard Time. Thursday, I think we're going to go out if the weather is nice, and we're going to do my version of a suburban sketching of some sort, and I think I'm just going to bring graphite pencils to do, so to use it with. So if you want to bring pencils yourself, I'll set up the tripod, and I'll try to make it so you can see the view as well, if you would like to draw along, or if you just want to sit and draw on something that you want to do and watch and just hang out. It'll be something fun we can do together. So, so that will be what we will be doing this Thursday, weather permitting. But catch up with us on that. And anytime you are watching these and want to, you're not able to go to art classes with your friends because of this, create a watch party on this, tag your friends, and you guys can all watch it together and have your own private conversation kind of away from the group if you want. just to be able to enjoy each other's company and do something that's still social while distancing, okay? So you guys take care of yourselves, take care of each other online, use this time to do some art, and I'll see you on Thursday, okay?